The title of our show today is Reverse Catfish, Tesla, China, and Evergrande. At this time of the year, I really enjoy seeing all the trees, etc., so you'll excuse me if we give you a chance to take in some of the beautiful colors that go with the tree transition. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. As you know, there's been some news that popped up regarding Tesla. They've decided to lower prices in China as well as introduce an incentive program for referrals for other buyers. So the answer is, I think Tesla's doing a great job in China. They're building a lot of cars, the customers are satisfied, etc. But there's something going on. What Elon's argument is, there's somewhat of a recession. And so I wanted to explore individual data points that are sort of their own volition, sort of possible impactors on what's going on, and allow you to sort of use that to sort of put back together potentially what's occurring. So we wanted to, again, encourage you to join us on Patreon as well as subscribe if you enjoy the show. What I wanted to look at today is the fact that, first of all, if you really think about it, Tesla is in a situation where their largest sort of space, be it vehicles being sold as well as production, most of that is actually coming from China. So China is a really important entity when it comes to Tesla, particularly because the building of the factory there and the revenue and profit from it has really been the underpinning of why Tesla's company is so successful. So what I want to review today is like, what's going on here? The first thing that I wanted to review is just the fact that there's a company called Evergrande, and Evergrande just announced that they're going to start doing scale level production and sales of electric vehicles in China. And so this left me scratching my head as to why anyone would want to enter the electric market right now, given that there are so many competitors that have now decided to enter the marketplace and are already in the marketplace with products, and they're scaling up, including Tesla. So as you will recall with Evergrande is, their main business is real estate, and they just had a $300 billion colossal failure, which basically puts them in bankruptcy, but not technically because the Chinese government is pouring money into them. So when it was announced that they're actually going to start producing electric vehicles at scale, I was thinking to myself, that's really strange for a new company that's in bankruptcy to be in the process of introducing new vehicles. But, so on the surface it seems kind of weird, but it does have this kind of makes sense elements to it. What are those elements? Well, number one, Tesla agreed to do 100% supply chain within China when they built the new factory in Shanghai. They've now begun buying a lot of batteries domestically from, I believe, LG as well as CATL. So if you go through what's inside a Tesla vehicle, 100% of the parts are sort of China sourced. So if you're a new manufacturer in China and you want to compete with Tesla and you have the support of the government, you could actually say to those suppliers, if you don't supply us, you'll be in violation of what the government wants to do, and you obviously don't want to do that, so therefore you need to give us parts inventories, batteries, and all the other components that we need to make this work. So this is interesting because this was one of the challenges that Tesla kind of set up when it decided to do supply chain within country. So I wanted to kind of note here that One is Evergrande and looking at how and why Evergrande could enter the marketplace and hope to be successful right now. Number two, there's this whole discussion of catfishing. So as you recall from our shows that we first did when Tesla built its factory in China, there was this phenomenon where the head of all of their EV products made a point of the fact that they were doing something called catfishing. As you recall, what catfishing means is that there was a fisherman in Norway that noticed that anytime he caught a bunch of herring or sardines, they would put them in the tanks underneath the ship, and most of them would die by the time they got to port. But if they were still alive, they actually got higher fees for those fish. So what he started doing was dropping catfish inside of those pens, and they found that those catfishes that were trying to stay alive would actually be busy sort of running away from the catfish, and in the process they ended up staying alive until he got back to port, and therefore he got a higher price. There was a point at which there were as many as 200 Chinese companies trying to make electric vehicles, and so the idea the Chinese government had was to bring Tesla in to be a catfish, to either force those that are going to stay in business in and those that are going to drop out, but those companies would have to compete sort of effectively to be successful in the marketplace. So as a result, we have, I suppose some companies have gone out, but in general, those that have remained, including BYD and some of the other names, are stronger companies, and there are fewer competitors because they were forced out by this process. So with Evergrande looking to enter now, I found this interesting because it looks as though there's a Chinese government effort to support them entering the business, hence what I just described as, my discussion process. So the next issue when it comes to China is, well, Elon just articulated that there's some kind of a recession going on. Well, another data point that's lurking right now for China is we have rolling sort of shutdowns going on. So under the zero COVID policy, instead of trying to vaccinate everybody right away, there's if we discover pockets where there's COVID happening, we'll just shut down that region, city, possibly state, and allow and get back to zero COVID. So now what you have happening is if you can't leave your house because of shutdowns, why do you want to go buy an electric vehicle because you can't leave your house anyway? So there's this unknown as to, is it that there's a drop in production and demand for a lot of regions, or is it that if it's illegal for you to leave your house, you now have a situation where if you can't leave your house, there's a low chance that you can buy a car because you can't leave your house. And other possible issues that pop up with this is, well, wait a second, if part of your supply chain rotates to a section of the country that's on lockdown, how do you get access to what's there? And then the final thing that I wanted to mention here is the rules of China have really been flexed to help Tesla be successful, but there are some limitations to this. One key example is Elon pointed out that, guess what? We're going to build as many as five factories in different parts of China, and that allows us to service the car needs of those regions. Well, that has not been happening, as you noticed. It is more efficient to do everything in one spot as they're doing in Shanghai, but the problem with this is that there's an incentive. For example, BYD is based in the Shenzhen area of southern China. There's an incentive by local governments to protect local jobs by encouraging, through different methods, local buyers to focus on buying vehicles from manufacturers that are local to that area. So this creates a problem because the marketing efforts Tesla might be making are affected by, what's going on with this process. So again, as you'll notice, Tesla has concentrated the growth of operations in China in one manufacturing facility. And I believe that's because Shanghai agreed to be sort of the lead funder of Tesla when it was in a bad position. And competing cities have no interest in competing for jobs with, or the folks in Shanghai want to keep the job growth to themselves, and they have no interest in sharing that prosperity with others. But in those other locations, you do have other manufacturers that are generating jobs and therefore have a better possibility of marketing to that area because, for example, if you work at the factory, there's a good chance that your relatives, if they have to purchase an electric vehicle, might buy one from the factory that you work in rather than from a factory of a foreign manufacturer that's a distance away. So we're going to find out what the real deal is here, but Tesla has had to put incentives in to get cars sold, and that has created problems when it comes to a sense of, well, how much demand is there? Are there too many competitors? Do we now have to start cutting prices as a way to maintain or grow sales? And will there be a tipping point where some competitors that are not strong enough end up getting wiped out and therefore will leave the marketplace, leaving those sales to Tesla? The answer to those questions obviously will come as we're going forward. My view of the whole thing is that, yes, BYD is a good company. They're vertically integrated. They produce their own batteries, and they're at every price point from the lowest prices all the way to the highest prices. And they've been doing pretty well. There are other competitors there. So there's a lot of data flow, but it's hard to know specifically what the answer to the question of what is the real deal answer to the environment, because we don't know about the lockdowns and how that is affecting sales and demand of products. So, we'll keep you posted on this. And I believe China is a critical issue for Tesla and the entire EV world. So we definitely make it part of our beat to actually spend time reviewing what's going on in different places within China and why, and what does this mean to the future of Tesla and other companies. I think overall, though, that basically the Shanghai operations of Tesla actually saved the company and represents at least half the value. They're producing more vehicles at 85K a month at this point, and they're going to be growing those numbers. So it's a really important sort of portion of the company to focus on. I was a little bit surprised at the price reduction, because right now Australia is paying a premium to get cars, including Teslas, and there are a lot of places that want those vehicles at full or above full price, and why not just ship them out? Obviously the answer to that would be they're having shipping issues, but that seems strange. If Tesla shipped them out instead of discounting them, you would have the issue of sort of taking less market share in the markets that you've chosen not to sell into. But there is the benefit that you don't have to ship those vehicles anywhere. So I think it makes sense on the other side of this. At any rate, I have to say that the answer is going to come forward as we move forward here in terms of finding out how many cars Tesla is shipping out versus retaining within country. And speculating doesn't make any sense, because we're going to get the answer for real in the next month or two. But it just seems as though the environment is changing, and my analysis of it is a reverse catfishing process is going on, where there are enough well-heeled companies that are within China that have sort of individuals within Tesla's factories that are sort of replicating everything Tesla's doing, and therefore making that the inside of their vehicles. And now it gives the consumers a harder time to make a decision on which way to go, given that they have these competitors with the ability to deliver vehicles theoretically at Tesla quality, because they're now replicating Tesla's operations. So this is kind of a bad thing. That's a byproduct of Tesla deciding to open the factory there, but it's a good thing because you get all that market share, all of those cars sold, etc. And we'll see if this going forward is going to be a problem. The one other data point that I found fascinating about China is I've been casually studying China and how things work there for the last 20 years. And there's actually a Stanford professor that focuses on health effects of the process of the Chinese government. So if you didn't know this, I believe the number is above 85% of the men in China smoke. And it turns out that China owns the only tobacco company. So every year there's a growth in the number of cigarettes you purchase that are required, and then that growth helps them know what their profits are going to look like. Obviously there are health issues that pop up with that, but the point is that the government carefully controls how many cigarettes you're buying, etc. And I've been very surprised to see them not move some of this controlled selling process over to the electric vehicles. So another data point to consider in terms of the China process and how it might impact Tesla. At any rate, we look forward to your comments on all of this. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Just one last reminder, 25 leg lifts a day with a 5-pound weight is best, but it'll actually work even without the 5-pound weight because you're using the weight of your leg to strengthen your quad muscles, reducing the chance of having knee issues and operations as you go forward. Just got my number 4 COVID shot. The first day was a little rough, but it came out okay. Want to wish you the best of health. Please enjoy our final viewing of the fall leagues as they're changing. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lahid Road, Hebrew, Khoda Hafez Farsi, Zdravstvuyte Russian, Ni hao ma Chinese, Konbanwa Japanese, Hey Do Swedish. Good day, our friends in Australia. Arrivederci, our friends in Italy. Namaste, our Hindi. And in Jamaica, we say, Nuff respect, walk Woodman. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and I hope you enjoy the colors.